4 down and 2 to go, and I'm once again concerned about the direction this series is going. Actually, to be perfectly honest, I'm conflicted about episode 4 of Fooly Cooly Progressive. On the one hand, it had some of the best sequences of the whole new series up to this point, but on the other hand, there's just one major thing that's sticking out to me and really making me question everything. As far as things that were good, we get new developments in the quote-unquote story, we get some new insights into certain characters, especially Raharu. Apparently they're committed to calling her by her real name and not Haruko, so Raharu it is from this point forward. And we get some really good animation, especially in the battle between Raharu and Jinyu. I think what stood out to me the most as far as the good things go was an insight into Raharu's character. We finally see a side of her that isn't the playful, mischievous manipulator. We see her actually angry. In fact, not just angry, downright enraged. It's a rather disturbing side to her character which we haven't seen before, but which feels oddly appropriate. For some reason, Jinyu just gets under her skin, so naturally she would draw this side of Raharu out into the open. Plus, we learn what the plant can do. Apparently, it can reverse the NO field. So if we have a lot of good elements, what's making me worried? Well, once again, it comes down to Hidomi. I said that episode 3 felt like it was starting to set up the pieces to explain why Hidomi is the main character. This episode makes me think I might have been wrong. Or rather, it's rewritten my assessment of Hidomi's character in the negative. As of this episode, I can no longer tell you what kind of person Hidomi is. The first 3 episodes, she was completely detached from everything, barely having any sort of reaction, barely saying 2 words together, and then we had her dream sequences in which we saw she was much more chipper, but also kind of messed up. In this episode, thanks to security measures in the headphones, she's bright and chipper, but it doesn't feel like the same bright and chipper we saw in her dream sequences. It's similar, but it's not the same. And by the end of episode 4, she's different from both of those personalities. The only way I can describe Hidomi at this point is what she looks like, because I don't have a read on her personality at all. I'm not even sure she has a consistent one. And it is in realizing this that I also realized the major problem with Hidomi. She's not really a character. She's a MacGuffin. If you haven't heard that term before, here's a quick definition. MacGuffin was a term coined, or at the very least popularized, by Alfred Hitchcock. A MacGuffin is the item all the characters in the story are trying to obtain for themselves, but beyond that it doesn't really matter what it is. Usually a MacGuffin is an object. The Indiana Jones movies provide great examples of MacGuffins. The Ark of the Covenant from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Sacred Stones from the Temple of Doom, the Holy Grail from The Last Crusade, and the Crystal Skulls from Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. So they're important to the plot, but they don't really drive the plot. They do nothing to actively move the plot forward themselves. Sometimes a person can be a MacGuffin, but it's generally not a good idea to also have that person MacGuffin be the main character. And that's what appears to be happening in Fooly Cooly Progressive. I've seen this happen one other place, in a Wildstorm graphic novel called Wraithborn. Basic story there, you've got a main character named Melanie who inherits the ability of the Wraithborn, which gives her these incredible powers that allow her to slay demons, but there are 2 other forces that want control of her, good guys and bad guys. The entire comic is about their struggle to get control of Melanie. Literally the entire comic, to the point where we never even see Melanie embrace the powers herself. There's a framing device in which we see Melanie in the future having embraced the power of the Wraithborn and killing demons left and right, but we never get that moment at the end where she becomes Wraithborn. So Melanie is the protagonist, but she's also a MacGuffin, and as a result, she doesn't do anything. The same thing is happening with Hidomi. Hidomi is the character all the other characters are trying to get control of, but she has no agency of her own. Looking back on the previous episodes in addition to this one, she hasn't done a single thing to move events forward that wasn't either an involuntary reaction or an accident. Take the 4th episode, for example. While Raharu and Jinyu are trying to figure out how to get into the Medical Mechanica building, Hidomi finds that potted plant and tosses it into the air, allowing it to land on Ide's head just right to reverse his NO field and suck Jinyu and Raharu into it and by extension into the building. Hidomi did not, however, do that intentionally, and really, if this were a real-life event, it would have been complete chance. Not to mention we have no idea why the plant is with them to begin with, because there's no reason for it to be there. Last time I saw it, the fat kid had it, so why they have it now is because if they don't have it, the story can't move forward and Hidomi can't perform her random action. Even for something with no plot, this is really bad writing. So now I'm back to questioning why Hidomi is our main character if she's just gonna drift through the series with everything happening around her and not doing anything of her own volition. The only thing she has done of her own volition thus far comes at the very end of episode 4, where she puts the headphones back on, which at this point may as well just be hitting the reset button. Maybe things will move forward from there, but the few seconds we get of the next episode teaser don't even show her. And unfortunately, this undoes everything else. Hidomi is our protagonist after all. We're supposed to care about her and her journey, but if her journey is just drifting through life and letting things happen by chance or involuntarily, then why on earth should I care? I'm still gonna stick around and see how this all wraps up, but I'm not entirely confident it'll be satisfactory anymore. You have 2 episodes left, Fooly Cooly Progressive. Don't waste them.